Hello and welcome to IdeaGen TV. Today we are so excited to have a power chat led by Luq Niazi, IBM Global Managing Director of Consumer Industries. Luq, welcome.
Thank you, John, and delighted to be here again on IdeaGen. Today I'm really fascinated by the topic we're going to explore with our guest, Alf-Gøran Knutsen, who is the CEO of Kvarøy Arctic. We're going to be talking about why traceability can accelerate the aquacultural revolution. So I'm hugely excited about that, but maybe let's start off, Alf, if you could just give a little bit of context about Kvarøy Arctic, the company that you lead, its mission and what you're trying to do with that company.
Yes, thank you for having me, Luq. My name is Alf-Gøran Knutsen, and I'm the CEO of Kvarøy Arctic. Kvarøy Arctic is a family-owned company that has been doing farming since 1976, so one of the oldest companies in Norway. I am the third generation leading the company. We have a relatively small production compared to the other farms in Norway. We have 8,000 metric tons out of the total 1.3 million tons of production in Norway. And I took over the company from my father-in-law, that was one of the founders of the company. And after I came in 2008, we have tried to move the company forward into a more sustainable way of producing salmon. So we are moving that way. We are working with sustainability, and of course traceability and transparency is one of the most important things we do in our farm. So yeah, that's a little. We are located on the Arctic Circle. Actually, it's a small island with only 80 people living here. Of course, the salmon company being the cornerstone company on the island, and with 26 people working here, we are an important figure on the island.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Alf. And I know as we get through this discussion, we're going to explore many of the aspects of what you're trying to do to make the salmon production that your business generates truly sustainable end to end. But let me just explore with the audience a little bit about why the Sustainable Development Goal number 14, all around our oceans and life below water, is so critical. And I would like to frame up with a few kind of key aspects. I mean, first and foremost, there are over 3 billion people on the planet whose life depends on marine and coastal biodiversity for their livelihoods. That market value of that activity and the resources and industries associated with it is about $3 trillion per year. It's 5% of the global GDP by 2030, according to OECD predictions. And marine fisheries, inland fisheries, together with aquaculture, provide food and nutrition and a source of income to over 820 million people. And of course, sustainable fisheries and their contribution to GDP, especially in small island states like those in Oceania and the least developed countries, is hugely important. About 80% of the marine production has an impact on the waters on the coast. It originates in the land, including agricultural runoff and the use of pesticides and plastics, and also the consequences of untreated sewage from farmland. And that, combined with, of course, the increased consumption of plastic around the world, whether it's the millions of plastic bottles that are purchased every minute, or the 5 trillion single-use plastic bags that are consumed in the world everywhere, all of that in some shape or form ends up resulting in plastic that can end up in our oceans and our seas. And so these combination of the production, but also these forces of pollutants, both man-made and through agricultural practices, is really key to what's going on here. And of course, we know that when it comes to CO2 emissions, that for every kilogram of fish, it has a much lower carbon footprint than other terrestrial proteins. And so, it's really important that we take appropriate action. And that means, protecting vulnerable habitats, trying to eliminate plastic usage as much as possible, and helping organize beach cleanups, for example. There's sustainability in the future of the fishing industry. And of course, at a very local level, making ocean-friendly choices when we buy our products and when we consume our food. And being able to understand those choices and see that information is a really good place to start. Now, this ocean, is part of your life, Alf, and with the Kvarøy Arctic being within your family for 3 generations, I'd just like to go a little bit deeper in terms of explaining kind of the various elements of the the food value chain in the salmon production, and what you're really doing across that to try to make it even more sustainable than the natural habitat already provides.
We have done a lot of things. It's as a farmer, you're always it's a young industry. There is still a lot of things you can do. When I came into the industry, I came in with I'm actually an educated teacher, so I had a different view at farming. I had a different goal of what I wanted to achieve, and I wanted to achieve something and move the industry forward. So what we did in the beginning was look at what is our problems, what can we do to solve these problems, and where can we change things. So we started first with the production process, looking at how we can do farming better, lower density, better fish welfare, how we could reduce or take away use of medicals or antibiotics, how we could get rid of the copper nets, those kind of things we took out quite fast. And then we started also working with, of course, the main ingredients in producing salmon, that is the feed, that has a long way to go to take down the carbon footprint, like you said. The feed is the salmon is what it eats, and the feed is the raw material for the feed is very important on how you produce the salmon and how your end product ends up. So we started working with BioMar, trying to find more sustainable raw material, shorter travels to reduce the carbon footprint, all of those things to kind of move the industry forward. And you have to understand, we're not trying to protect what we're doing. We're openly sharing everything we're doing with other farmers, making sure that we are doing something that can move the whole industry forward. Growing up on this island and being part of the island, it's important for us to do things right, so this industry can still be here in 50 years. And for that to happen, we need to work with those things on how we take care of the ocean that we are set to. We have been given a right to use it, so we have to take care of the ocean best possible way.
No, I understand, and the way you describe, of course, every aspect, everything from the source of feed that you give to the medical treatments, etc. I can all see how that can result in driving improved sustainability, and that's really great, Alf-Gøran. But obviously, people need to know about the things that you're doing in the products that you are producing, and that has to go obviously into the kind of the wholesalers that buy your products. But also, I know you're doing more and more business, more direct to your markets, with, of course, the US being, a big part of your market. And I know that you work, very deeply with Whole Foods in the US. You've been experimenting and working, obviously, with us to help make more of that information and that life cycle much more transparent. And one of the things that we saw in a study that we did earlier this year was that customers really who care about sustainability want to see the evidence of that traceability of what's happening in their food production all the way through the value chain. So could you just elaborate a bit further in terms of how you've chosen to utilize digital technologies to make that come to life, both for the companies that you sell to, but ultimately for the benefit of the end consumer?
Yeah, it's like you said, we've been working with IBM to build this platform for salmon farmers. For me, it was the trigger point is that the transparency towards the customers. We have, like you said, we have Whole Foods Market. We have customers that are more connected. They want to know more about the food they eat. They want to investigate everything. It's important for them to be able to know as much as possible. So we saw the blockchain technology and the blockchain opportunities as a brilliant way of taking all of that data, taking all of those things that we have been working on with the feed, with the breeding, with the way we produce it, and getting that out to the customer with a certain confirmation. They could feel safe that we're not only telling the story, it's actually what's being done also. So it's how to say it, it's a confirmed data chain that it's not possible for us to manipulate in any way. It's proven that this fish has this transparency all the way through. You can go in. Our goal is you can go in. You can trace the feed ingredients. You can trace the breed. You can trace the sites. You can trace everything, and we're sharing as much as possible. Of course, the customers have a limit on how much they know, but if they want to know, they can know as much as possible. And that's building that platform with IBM has been key in getting more customer outside of Whole Foods also, because it's getting more and more important to have that transparency with the customers.
Yeah, I understand. And the way you explained it to me was that the QR code for the crate of salmon is specific to that particular batch, i.e. the story is not just a generic life cycle, it's a specific life cycle to that particular crate of delivery that's occurring.
Yeah, you can almost, it's not, you can't trace every fish, of course, but every batch of fish is traceable, and down to the pen and down to the tuber it was raised on land before it went into the sea, and so everything is there, all the information, and that putting that information together has been. We have a lot of data, we have a lot of information. No one has come in and kind of connected those dots like this IBM project has done.
Yeah, but of course, if I'm buying from a Whole Foods or another shop, I would have the ability, I guess, to scan the QR code in the shop and then see all of the information about that delivery, and that's going to inform the choice. And I can see that when I'm buying Kvarøy Arctic fish, that I can really see its sustainability. And I understand that customer proposition now. I've explored, with other parts of the food value chain, how putting that information really in the hands of the consumers at the point of their decision is so important. But tell me, it's not getting all the way down to the restaurants. What would we have to do to kind of get this information really, at the restaurants from your perspective?
No, we're working on that also. As you say, it's a QR code that every batch and every box of fish has. The problem with most of the restaurant is that the distributors take the boxes and then pick them up pieces before it goes out to the restaurants. So we're trying to build on this platform with the QR code to be able to go all the way down to the restaurant. So the restaurant that has interactive menus, for example, can have that that batch then being transferred into their interactive menus. Of course, it's going to be difficult with the printed menus, but interactive, more and more restaurants have interactive menus that you can order online or whatever, and with that there's a possibility of having the QR code. But of course, for those with printed menus, we're also going to have like a QR code with more general information about Kvarøy Arctic, and it's a great platform for us also being able to tell that story, being able to market our product, the Kvarøy Arctic product, as being sustainable, and showing everyone that we are doing more and doing the best we can to be sustainable, or as sustainable as possible. Yeah.
And do you think having that information, and kind of, if you go full circle, Alf, do you feel that therefore, it allows you to charge a premium for your products? Are you able to acquire additional margin to drive the kind of the virtuous circle of putting it back, into the produce that you're making?
Yeah, absolutely. It's being the first mover. Of course, it's difficult to pinpoint that premium to the traceability, but it's an important part, and it's like I said, the consumers are asking more and more questions. They want to know more and more about the food. It's the millennials and those growing up now. They want to have access to as much information as possible. So doing that and being the first mover, we are absolutely able to get the premium, and I believe it's there is still room for more farmers to do that, and eventually and the reason why we are also moving into this is I think it's going to be mandatory, and the consumers are going to demand that this information is available.
Yeah, I can really relate to that, Alf, because I've seen it already in retail shopping environments, both in Europe and the US, but also when you think about how we care about our digital health much more, and we're looking at what we eat much more, and people do use their phones to scan what they're eating and look at what they're eating. I can see that connection. Of course, your point about the resolution of the menu, so that you can have the accuracy of the specific information rather of the QR code rather than generic information is an important point. But I think, as you say, it's not that far away before more and more menus adopt digital technologies within their portfolios also.
Yeah, absolutely. No. So it's sorry, the menus, and you can see that happening in airports and other places. They are adapting to more interactive menus. It's the future, and the QR and the blockchain in food production is the future for safer and better food production. And of course, the situation we are in now with COVID-19 has I think has accelerated all of this. It has accelerated the consumers to be more concerned about food and food products and where they buy it and where it comes from. So I think this is the timing of our blockchain couldn't have been better. Yeah.
No, I understand, and of course, we're working not only with yourselves, but we're working with many other parts of the industry, as you know, to kind of help bring that information together. For example, our work in the Sustainable Shrimp Partnership in Ecuador is a key part of that. We're also applying blockchain into the plastic bank, which is trying to drive reward for good collection and recycling in some of those locations that I talked about earlier that need to have that plastic captured and recycled and driven back. And beyond that, we're very excited to be working with the collaborations that are going on to look at ocean research, for example, the work that the Promar group are doing with the Mayflower. This is autonomous research vessel that's flowing around seas and oceans to do lots of experiments powered by AI, etc. All about getting more and more data so that we can better understand what's really going on with the oceans, but also what's happening with fishing practices. And I do think that if we bring that together with innovators like yourselves and a broader ecosystem, the ability to make this connection between what's happening in life underwater and to be able to drive better choices and behavior around that to make it a sustainable source for us all is really important. But maybe if I could just kind of hand back to you a little bit and ask you to kind of you've explained your your journey and what you're doing so far, but what's on your mind? Where do you see it going next? What do you want to do next with Kvarøy? What are the opportunities in your mind?
Yeah, that's always the big question. There is a lot still to do. There are many things still with farming that can be done better. But the most important thing right now is, of course, technology, adapting to new technology that is available there, and to use like trend words with big data and all of that is important to understand more about the ocean, about the farming that we do in the ocean, and why this and this happen. And of course, better welfare. That has been an important part for us now for many years. We are raising a fish in the sea. It's a biological production. Of course, there are mortality and those things, but we want to reduce that as much as possible, raising a better fish. And to do that, then there's genetics. The technology in genetics is vastly improving every year. There is a lot of things happening there with new technology that makes you do a better selection of breeding fishes. We actually have a breeding license also, so we produce fish for Benchmark, the Salmon breed. So we're working on them on how to pick better fish and breed better fish that is has a better fish welfare and a lower mortality level. So yeah, not to pinpoint one thing, but the technology is going to be important. It's we now have AI, machine learning. We can actually identify each salmon by name almost. It's with the video systems and with the camera system available. You could every salmon has their own footprints. You could actually recognize each salmon and follow up on the salmon on a better way. And those kind of technology advances are just in the beginning in farming industry. There are further in other industry, but in farming industry we're just starting to look at it. So that there are hopefully still a lot to do, and I'm not going to be out of work or out of eager to move forward for a very long time, it looks like.
Well, what I think is fascinating, Alf, and I hear you say all of that, is because you are an independent producer, in a very good sustainable farming ecosystem. You said earlier that you're sharing your best practices openly amongst your peers to be able to accelerate that further. And I think there's a lot of hope for that, to see that if organizations like of your size can really see the power and the potential of all of the practices, but then accelerating it through digital technologies. And if you can do it and you can influence your ecosystem to do it, then many more can do it. And if that kind of sea change, to excuse the pun, but that's going to drive the big shift in everything that we do. So Alf, thank you so much for taking the time to be partners with us. in driving this forward. We're so pleased to have you as part of the broader Food Trust Initiative. We are in sort of the life underwater part of the food value system in agriculture. And I hope that the people listening in today have found your contributions and your story enlightening and are inspired to take that forward for themselves.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure working with you guys on improving the industry. Absolutely.
That's great. Well, everybody, that kind of wraps up our point of view around how digital technologies can accelerate the practices of agriculture. I hope you found this IGGN session interesting, informative, and inspired you to think about new areas that you could apply to the work that you do in this part of the industry. Thank you.